Hey guys, so here's something really curious. When people talk about contact with beings, UFOs, NDEs, visions, visitations, there's one detail that never changes. And it's not really glowing ships and it's not shiny suits. It's actually the communication. And it's never ever with words. So experiencers almost always say, they didn't speak, they just knew. And they looked at me and thoughts just dropped in my head like stones in a pond. They asked me a question without moving their lips. It's not just one or two. It's thousands across decades, across continents. UFO contactees, NDE experiencers, mystics in caves, all saying the same thing. They didn't talk. They spoke inside of me. So near-death experiencers often describe, a being of light, not speaking, but radiating meaning. Every question is answered before it was asked, and every thought known before it was formed. The universal language of cosmos isn't English. It's not Sanskrit. It's not Klingon. Sorry, Trekkies. It's silence, telepathy, and direct knowing. And then meanwhile, humans are still arguing over which emoji best expresses sarcasm. So, really think about it. Words are clunky, they're slow, they're prone to error, and by the time I've finished saying pass the salt, a telepath could have already given you the entire history of sodium, its karmic relationship with your arteries, and a subtle nudge to eat more potassium. Words are stone wheels. Telepathy is quantum fiber optics, people. And here's the thing, right? Vedanta knew this all along. The sages called it mauna, sacred silence, because the self doesn't speak. The self simply knows. Every word we say is already a distortion, a step away from truth. That's why the deepest communication isn't talking at all. It's silence. And so Ramana Maharshi once asked, "How do you teach if you remain silent?" And he replied, "Well, silence is the most powerful teaching. The rest is just words." So maybe the beings aren't really muting themselves. Maybe they're inviting us to level up, per se. So let's face it, words, they are inefficient, right? Totally inefficient. You say love and your listener imagines Hallmark movies, their ex, their dog, and maybe pizza. One single word. 1,000 interpretations for it. No wonder we don't understand each other at all. Think about it. The beings skip the mess altogether. They don't bother with syllables. They send vibrations, like whole packets of meaning, and not sentences, but downloads. One pulse can contain an image, a feeling, 1,000 years of context. And words? That's like sending memes by carrier pigeon. And meanwhile, humans invented Twitter so we could misunderstand each other faster than ever before. People who have actually had contact, they often say, it wasn't like thinking. It was like remembering something I'd always known. Or sometimes they say, they showed me an entire lifetime in a single instant, in one moment. You're lying in bed and the next, a being stares at you, and then suddenly, you know their history. You know their intention. And you even know their warning. But not in words at all. In knowing. So Vedanta says this, truth is not in words, truth is beyond words. In the Upanishads, they even declare this, from where words return, together with the mind, unable to reach it. And that's why the sages leaned in on paradox silence and direct presence completely. Have you ever noticed the greatest teachers sometimes just sat there? Not lazy, and totally not clueless at all. They just tuned to the frequency. The one beyond speech? Right, because the self doesn't use grammar. It doesn't need to. The self already knows. And this is not new at all, guys, at all. In Sumerian texts, the Apkallu sages were said to whisper wisdom without breath. And in the Bible, prophets wrote of angels who placed words in their heart. And of course, Hindu lore, the rishis didn't learn the Vedas. They heard them. And they heard them as pure vibration. Shruti. And that's the word, and it means that which is heard. Not written, not invented, but heard. And I know you've all felt this before. Ever locked eyes with someone you loved and no words were ever needed at all? Have you ever walked into a room and felt tension, hit your chest before anyone said a word at all? and ever met a stranger and instantly felt trust, or then again, even danger, and with no explanation at all. And no, I don't think that's magic at all. That's communication, and it's communication without speech. The beings are just doing it better. Okay, so if you still don't get it, think of it like this. Think of it as a radio. You know, we tune into one frequency and we hear static, music or news. But silence, actual silence, silence is the master dial. Turn it just right and everything transmits, right? And that's what telepathy is. Not thinking louder, not even beaming thoughts, but tuning into the channel that was already broadcasting the whole time. And so the real question, it isn't how do we learn their language? It's how do we get quiet enough to hear what was always here? So Vedanta actually gives us a doorway, and it's called japa, repetition, right? And the king of mantras, of course, everyone has heard of Om. Not a slogan, not as a yoga studio decoration, but as a primal sound, like the frequency of creation itself. So when you chant Om, you're not just making noise, you're aligning with the hum of existence. Om is the universe in 3 vibrations. A for waking, U for dreaming, and M, deep sleep. And the silence after Om, the self beyond all those other states, that silence is where beings speak, and not with words, but with knowing. So if you want to try, I'll give you a quick overview here. So take a slow breath in, and then exhale it, and when you do, whisper Om. Feel the vibration in your chest. Let it rise through your throat, and let it roll into your skull, and then let it dissolve into pure silence. That silence after the sound, that is the channel. That's the signal. That's where communication happens, in the space between your thoughts. So let's try it again. Inhale Om, feel the vibration, and then exhale. And listen to the silence. And then just one more time, okay? So inhale Om, let it ripple through your body and let it fade. And exhale and listen deeper. Feel it dissolve and drop into the quiet, and that's all that remains. So at first you'll think it's just your breath, just your sound, but if you stay, you'll actually start to notice impressions, like a pulse of warmth, a sudden thought, maybe it's not yours, and then maybe a feeling, like someone's answering without words, and that's the beginning. That's how we enter, and it's not fantasy, it's not delusion, you're not schizophrenic, but it's a subtle communication. It's wordless, and it's extremely direct. So I'll go back to the radio. It's like the radio. At first, all you hear is static, but if you hold the dial long enough, and suddenly the station comes through, right? The beings are always transmitting. You just haven't been listening on the right frequency. And the frequency, of course, is silence. Okay, so try this. Close your eyes and breathe into your chest and whisper Om just softly. And when it fades, don't rush at all. Please don't rush. Don't grasp. And just wait. Wait in the silence. And just notice the subtle nudge. A shimmer. Like a ripple in the quiet. And that's it. That's the language. And that's the channel. Because the self, your own awareness, is already fluent. The beings don't talk to your ears. They talk to your essence. Ramana Maharshi said this, silence is unceasing eloquence. That's why the greatest teachers sat in silence, and not because they had nothing to say, but because what mattered, it couldn't be spoken at all. And meanwhile, we're still out here arguing whether LOL means laughing or just breathing loudly through the nose. Okay, so maybe beings don't talk because they don't need to. Maybe their silence isn't absence. It's fullness. And then maybe the only reason we don't hear them is because we don't stop talking long enough to listen. So imagine this. You sit in silence and you whisper Om, and then the vibration fades, and the stillness, you feel it. It's like a presence, like a knowing, a transmission without words, and it's not out there. It's here, and it's inside, and it's always been waiting. So here's your big takeaway from today. So to meet them, you don't need a craft, you don't need a dictionary, and you don't need a Nobel Prize in linguistics. You simply need silence. And you need Om. Because when words stop, knowing begins. And in that knowing, contact isn't out there. It's already happening. Right here, right now, inside you. Namaste.